Every month, like clockwork, a week before your period, your stomach balloons. You haven't been able to poop properly in days, you feel heavy, bloated, gassy, your jeans don't fit, and you're told this is just PMS. It's just part of the female experience. Cut salt, drink more water, maybe take some Midol. But here's what nobody tells you. The bloating and constipation are signals from your gut. And if you're experiencing them every single cycle, your gut is trying to tell you something is wrong, not just hormonally, also bacterially. Stick with me for the next 10 minutes and I will explain to you exactly why this is happening and why it will keep happening unless you address the root cause. Hi, I'm Xenia and I'm on a mission to fix constipation and bloating for everyone. I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and I founded Satori Health, where I work with high-achieving women to help them resolve years of digestive symptoms with advanced functional lab testing. If you've been dealing with pre-period bloating and constipation for years and you've been told this is just normal, it's part of the female experience, then this is the right video for you. Because it's not just hormones, and it's definitely not something you have to live with. Let me describe to you what I hear from women all the time. About a week to 10 days before their period actually starts, their stomach balloons and their motility slows down. They go from having relatively normal bowel movements to having barely any at all for a week, or sometimes it actually flips the other way right before their periods and they get really loose stools. But that backed up, bloated, distended feeling in the days leading up to the period is incredibly common and incredibly dismissed. And the frustrating part is that it goes away almost immediately the moment their period starts. That means they go back to feeling normal for a little while and then the cycle restarts every single month. Does that sound familiar? That pattern is not random. Actually, the timing in the cycle tells us exactly what hormones are malfunctioning and what's breaking down. And when you understand the mechanism, why both of these are happening together and why they stop the moment your period starts, everything clicks into place. So let's quickly recap what's going on during your period. It has two main phases: the follicular phase, which is the first half leading up to your ovulation that starts right after your period finishes. And then you have the luteal phase, which is the second half of your cycle, which starts after you've completed your ovulation, before your menstrual cycle starts. During the luteal phase, two hormones are elevated. Progesterone spikes up sharply right after ovulation completes, and estrogen has a secondary small spike in the early luteal phase before both hormones plummet before your period. But here's where the gut comes in. Both hormones actually have an effect on your gut motility, meaning how fast or how slow things move through your intestines. Progesterone is a smooth muscle relaxant. That's actually its role during pregnancy. It relaxes the uterine muscles. But progesterone doesn't discriminate. It also relaxes your colon muscles. So when progesterone is elevated, gut transit time is slowed down because your muscles aren't contracting as much. They're more relaxed. And because things move more sluggishly, stool sits in the colon for longer, which means more water gets reabsorbed from the stool, which means it gets drier and more prone to constipation, which means gas buildup, which means bloating. So as a result, you're bloated and constipated. But these symptoms are both coming from the same hormone trigger. Estrogen has its own motility effects. And this is where it gets interesting, because for estrogen, the impact on the gut isn't just about the hormone itself, but it's actually about what the bacteria in your gut do to the estrogen. Here's the piece that doctors often skip altogether. There's a specific collection of gut bacteria called the estrobolome, whose primary job is to metabolize estrogen. These bacteria produce an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase, which plays a key role in how estrogen gets processed and cleared from the body. Here's how it's supposed to work. Your liver takes estrogen, packages it up for elimination, and sends it to the colon to be cleared out from the body. The estrobolome helps regulate this process. When working well, estrogen moves through and out. You clear it efficiently, your hormones stay balanced. But when your gut microbiome is disrupted, I'm talking about dysbiosis, which is an imbalance in your gut bacteria. Something goes wrong. Beta-glucuronidase activity becomes excessive. And instead of estrogen being excreted, it gets reactivated and reabsorbed into your system. This is called estrogen recirculation. And what it does is artificially elevate your estrogen levels, especially in the luteal phase when estrogen is already elevated. You end up with more estrogen than your body is designed to have. And that excess estrogen amplifies everything: the bloating, the water retention, the gassiness, the gut slowing down. So you're not just dealing with a hormone problem, you're dealing with a gut bacteria problem that's creating a hormone problem. And that's an important distinction, because treating one without the other is why so many women get stuck in this repetitive loop. So now you understand why both symptoms hit when they do. In the luteal phase, you have progesterone directly slowing down your gut motility, estrogen recirculating due to a disrupted estrobolome, and both working together to slow transit, trap gas, harden stool, and create that characteristic bloating and constipation before your period that goes away the moment your period starts. Because when your period begins, both estrogen and progesterone drop sharply. The hormonal brake on your gut lifts, motility picks up again, and voila, you're pooping once again. The bloating deflates, but all of that until the next month. Same pattern, same bloating, because the root cause, which is your gut dysbiosis, hasn't been addressed. There's also a specific motility mechanism important to understand here, the MMC, the migrating motor complex, which is like the sweeping mechanism in your gut that activates between meals. It requires about 3-4 hours of not eating for it to be activated, and it's a muscle contraction that pushes food through your small intestine and your colon. Chronic stress suppresses the MMC, and guess what else suppresses the MMC? Progesterone, high progesterone. So in the luteal phase, you often have this compounding effect specifically on constipation. Progesterone is slowing your smooth muscle contraction, and the MMC is also compromised because of it. And if there's any existing dysbiosis, it adds gas and fermentation to the already slowed transit. That's 3 forces stacking against you all at once. When I run a GI map, which is a comprehensive stool test on women who present with these cyclical bloating and constipation symptoms, I'm looking at beta-glucuronidase activity, because elevated beta-glucuronidase activity is a direct marker of estrogen recirculation. I'm also looking at overall microbial diversity, overgrowth of opportunistic bacteria, and intestinal permeability markers, because a compromised gut lining makes the whole picture worse and more inflamed. And when I pair a GI map with a Dutch test, which looks at how estrogen is made, metabolized, and excreted, it gives me a complete picture of what's going on. I can see whether estrogen is being cleared completely and whether it's just piling up. I can see which detox pathways are struggling. And I can actually connect the hormonal pattern to the gut pattern, which tells us exactly where we should be intervening. This is what functional lab testing gives you that standard blood work doesn't. A standard blood panel will tell you estrogen levels on the day of the draw. It won't tell you what the bacteria are doing with it and whether your gut is actually clearing it. That's the difference. Now, I want to leave you with some actions that you can take, and this isn't just going to be like eat more fiber, reduce stress. I mean, things that you could actually do starting this cycle that will help. Number 1 is liquid magnesium citrate. This is super actionable for constipation, and in my experience, liquid or powdered magnesium citrate is more effective than capsules. It acts as an osmotic laxative, which means it draws water to your bowels to help you create a bowel movement. But you need to make sure to drink a lot of water alongside of that, otherwise you'll have nothing to draw on. And unlike stimulant laxatives, it can't create a dependency, it just draws on your body's natural processes. In the luteal phase, when your progesterone is hitting the brakes on your gut, this will help create that natural movement. I would start with 300 to 400 milliliters and titrate up as needed until you have a bowel movement in the morning. Take it in the evening before bed. Number 2 is the JS Health Detox and Debloat formula. I genuinely think their formula is the most effective one that I've come across, and it hits the bloating problem from 2 different angles. Fennel seed directly relieves abdominal bloating and gassiness. Milk thistle and turmeric support bile secretion and liver detoxification, which, if you've been paying attention, is the exact pathway that your estrogen needs to be eliminated properly. While bile flow is sluggish, estrogen clearance is slow. And when estrogen clearance is slow, you get more recirculation, more bloating, more everything we've just talked about. This formula is supporting the liver's ability to do its job, which matters so much in the luteal phase. I take it consistently through the second half of your cycle, not just when symptoms flare. Number 3 is calcium D-glucarate. This one is less well known, but arguably the most effective one for the estrobolome piece. Calcium D-glucarate directly inhibits beta-glucuronidase, the enzyme I mentioned earlier that reactivates estrogen and prevents it from being excreted. By keeping beta-glucuronidase in check, you're actively helping your body excrete the estrogen instead of reabsorbing it. I typically recommend 500 milligrams around once or twice daily. This will work particularly well if you take it synergistically with JS Health because it attacks the same problem from 2 different angles. Number 4 is a castor oil pack over the lower abdomen. Now, I know this sounds old school. It is old school and it works. I would do it as follows. I would take the castor oil pack as you would normally do, put a bunch of castor oil on it, put it over, and then also take a hot water bottle and put the hot water bottle over that. The heat together with the castor castor oil, which will absorb faster that way, really relieves bloating and that gassiness and abdominal pressure very effectively, very quickly. Like within an hour, you will see how much less bloated your stomach is. It's going to stimulate bile flow, support lymphatic drainage, and reduce that heavy, congested, backed up feeling in your gut. Please try to use a high quality castor oil. Don't buy the ones in plastic bottle, a glass dark bottle like the Queen of Thorns on Amazon, for example. And it's also like a really relaxing practice to do in the evening. You're going to enjoy it. Now, of course, none of these four address any of the root causes, but they will actually help you feel better this luteal phase. Pre-period bloating and constipation are not your baseline. They're not your healthy body's default. They're not something you should keep managing. These are signals from your gut about your bacteria, about an imbalance, about a dysfunction. They have a root cause that can be identified and addressed. If you've been stuck in this cycle for years and nothing has helped, the most important thing you can do for yourself is get data and not try another elimination diet. Get actual data to understand what it is that you're dealing with in your gut. If you want to understand exactly how I approach this with clients, I have a free guide on functional lab testing. I'll add a link to it in the description. In it, I walk through the GI map, the Dutch, what these tests look like, and what it looks like to work through some of these things. If you found this helpful, hit a follow to see my next videos on the same topics, or share this with your friend who's constantly struggling with bloating right before her period. See you in the next one.